Welcome back, everyone, to episode 3 of the Hendriks Experience podcast. We're very fortunate today to have with us Kevin Ridgway. Kevin is a certified financial planner. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, why don't we just start by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
And then we'll go from there.
Sure. So I got my career started at a traditional financial institution. Was there for around 7 years. Worked through various positions, lending, mortgages, and then most recently, before I left and went independent, I was in wealth management, and then went independent completely in 2022. So seen a lot at the bank with mortgages, with wealth management, etc. So it's nice to, when I meet with people, to be able to speak to the various things, not just wealth management.
Yeah, absolutely. You look very young. You've got a great young look, but really, it's good that you've got a lot of background of experience at such a young age already.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think that's good for young people. They can probably relate with you very well.
Yep.
What I'd like to chat a little bit today is about, that young couple or young individual who has never invested a dollar before, and they want to connect with you and like, how? What do I do? What are the steps? Can you share with us, what would be the first step that somebody would take?
Sure. So I think at the beginning, I think it's a bit of a whirlwind. When you think about a financial advisor or a financial planner, you think of it's going to be very technical, and a lot of people would shy away from that. So I think it's my job, especially for younger people when they're coming in, to kind of set the expectation in terms of what you can expect when you're investing. But not only that, but how we're going to invest and what they're investing for, right? Are they investing to buy a home? Are they investing for retirement? And so that makes a big difference in terms of the investment plan that I would put forward. Right.
So, just like we were chatting last episode about, going into a lawyer's office, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah. Yep.
So because, they get we're overwhelmed with information out there. So they hear everything. So they could feel a little intimidated as well. And I could appreciate that. So you meet them face to face, you meet them by Zoom meeting. And how does that typically look?
So typically they would, typically they would reach out. The first meeting would be a phone call. In many cases, that's what it's been. And then after that, they might come into the office, or we might do a Zoom meeting depending on whatever they're comfortable with. And I think that first meeting is just about discovery.
So are you speaking even of the telephone conversation is a discovery? So what would be a few questions that you might ask them in that phone conversation?
So in a phone conversation, they might be wondering, what exactly do you specialize in, or what, there's so many different areas when you think of a financial advisor. Have you focused on investments? Have you focused on insurance, lending, etc.? For myself, I've kind of done it all, so I can speak to those things, but my specialty is more on the wealth management side. So that phone call would be just setting the expectation. And then when they come in person, it's about putting together a plan or, a discovery process.
Sure. Well, just step back for a second there in the phone conversation. When you say wealth planner,
yes,
then some might go, wow, hold on a second here. I'm not loaded. I'm not Mr. Mrs. Millionaire yet.
That's fair.
You will likely be able to bring them to that point, but they might feel like, I can imagine that they might feel, I don't really have a lot of money to invest. So am I even in the right place, right? Are you the guy to go to when I'm just kind of starting off?
Yeah, and I think, again, that's a huge misconception, and I think that's a big barrier to entry for a lot of younger people that, think they don't have enough to start investing, but in reality, they most likely do. And I think, to that point, I think it's about saying, okay, you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars to start investing. In many cases for younger people, it's about, maybe you have a few $1,000s, so we start with that. And then we might set up a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly contribution to the investment fund. And that's a great way to kind of get your feet wet.
Now, that conversation, is that happening in the phone call, or are you just basically getting to know them a little bit in that phone call and then booking a meeting and then you talk about those type of things?
Yeah, so I say on the phone call that conversation might take place. It'll certainly go into more detail in person. But just, I think that first phone call is about getting their guard down in the sense of being approachable. in the sense of, being relatable, that you've worked with younger people, or, I've worked with all kinds of people. So I think, the first phone call is more of an interview.
Right.
To see, okay, can I relate with this individual? Has he, worked with people like me? And if so, if you feel confident, then we kind of move to the in-person appointment.
Sure, because if they're feeling a little bit of intimidation that I spoke
Yes.
about earlier, from a business standpoint, you want them to feel comfortable with you and your conversation. And so, they can start as little, you said, a couple $1,000s. And then on a monthly basis, are most people investing in a specific monthly amount each month?
It varies. It varies different on your monthly expenses and on your income. So, some people might invest biweekly a few $100s. Some people might do monthly a few $100s. It depends completely on your own situation. And then that's my job to kind of convey to you that it's not going to be black and white. There's no rule book in terms of you should be investing, X, Y, Z. Again, as a financial planner, it's my job to say, okay, this will work for your situation, and then show you what that might look like in 3, 5, 10 years, etc.
Okay, awesome. So you meet with them at our office. We're at the Hendriks Business Center. We work together there, and you have a sit down with them there, and are you gonna ask them about what is their goal at the end of the day?
Yep.
Like at retirement, usually it seems that financial planning is all about that moment of retirement. Is that correct?
Yes, ideally, but it's important to also understand for myself as well that, a lot of people have other goals in between retirement, such as, buying that first home.
Buying a house. Sure.
Which I know a guy.
You know a guy. Fantastic.
And so it's about making them aware of those different life stages that will come up that they might not be thinking about. Because I'll meet with a lot of people and they'll just say, okay, retirement, 25 years. It's my job to say, okay, well, maybe in 5 or 7 years, you might be thinking about a house. So that investment plan for that 5 to 7 years with the one section of their money or one portion of their money is going to be invested a lot differently than their retirement fund 25 or 30 years away.
Right. And when it's invested differently, is it actually two separate accounts? Let's say they are saving up for a home and they want to put money into an account for that, and then they have their other investing for that long-term savings. Is it actually into two separate accounts, or are they merged together and you're just pulling out funds as needed?
Yeah, the most common thing that I see, especially for young folks that are going to buy a home, typically, if I met with a 25-year-old, they might be saving for a home in the next 18 months to 2 years. I would encourage those people to leave that money in a high interest savings account, or, a GIC at the bank, which means, a guaranteed investment certificate. Because if you have an 18-month or 2-year time horizon, we don't want to be taking risk that you don't have to take, right, for a 2-year window. And so that money might sit in a savings account at your bank, or it might not, depending. And then for the retirement fund, then that would be a separate account completely, where they're likely more comfortable with taking a bit more risk in their portfolio.
Right. So the general rule of thumb being the longer out that you're needing that money,
yes,
the higher the risk level that you could take on investing that money.
Correct.
Because you're going to have more times to go through the highs and lows of the change of the market. Would that be accurate?
That's 100% correct.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah. And so you sit down with them, you go over, do they normally go how much do I need for retirement? Do they,
Yep.
do they understand? Do people today have a sense of what's needed? Because we look at it today's dollars.
Yep.
But I'm a few years older in age than you, just a few.
Okay, just a few.
So what we had set maybe as what we need for retirement 20, 30 plus years ago,
Yep.
That dollar amount obviously has changed with
Yep.
inflation and so on, inflation being a big topic today.
Yep.
So is there a set kind of number that people should be shooting for to have access to in retirement to maintain a certain level of lifestyle level?
Yeah, so I would say as a financial planner, whenever I'm doing a financial plan for somebody, it's not black and white. Everybody wants to hear, okay, I need X amount of dollars, or I need to save X amount of dollars. But if someone's earning $50,000 versus someone earning $150,000, and again, based on their expenses, what they're able to save monthly or biweekly is going to change drastically. But at the end of the day, the most important number in retirement is how much are you looking to spend in retirement. And for some people, that might be $40,000 or $50,000 a year. And for other people with, maybe they have a few investment properties or whatnot, they might need, $100,000 or $120,000 a year in retirement. So I tailor make financial plans based on your lifestyle and based on what you're looking to spend, but also realistic in the sense of what are you earning and what can you save at the moment.
Fantastic. So if I'm understanding you correctly, what it sounds like is that you're shooting for a set number potentially based on what your current lifestyle is and what you'd like your lifestyle to be at that point of retirement. And retirement for some people might be 45, 50, 55, 60, 70. A lot of people are working longer these days.
Definitely.
As myself. And but also because I enjoy and I love what I do. So that makes a big difference in your life as well. But is it true that the amount that you're setting for in that retirement, is it to get to that overall amount so that you're living off the interest that that amount produces and that is what you're living at? Or are you looking at that amount and going, okay, this is average of how many more years I may have left in my life, and I'm going to burn through those dollars?
Yeah, so I would say that, there's a ton of articles out there. There's a popular one going around right now by BMO saying you need $1.7 million to be able to retire. That's just not true, because you'd never know how much someone's willing to spend in retirement or their lifestyle needs, but we also don't know their government benefits in terms of, Canadian pension plan, old age security. Do you have another pension elsewhere? Like, there's so many different factors that go into someone's retirement or lifestyle that it's just not black and white. So I sometimes cringe when I hear that you need $1 million, you need $2 million to retire in Canada. It's just not the case. I've seen people retiring with, 300,000 or 400,000 CPP, old age security, and that's fine for them. Would it be fine for everybody? Maybe not, but again, everybody's situation's different.
Okay, but at the end of the day, you take that number that they're kind of shooting for at retirement, and then you work it backwards to figure out, okay, what monthly contribution or biweekly contribution you would need to make based on your age, where you're at, and the age that you'd like to retire, to help, it's not cut in stone, but it gives you a guide, correct?
That's correct. So I could say if you're saving X amount of dollars a month and earning 6% on average, this is what you're going to have in 10, 15, 20, 25 years. You will have this lump sum. And we can, say that with some predictability, because I would say any financial planner's investment strategy, again, we're not shooting for the moon. We're not, and we're setting realistic expectations. Are you going to double your money in the first year of investing? Probably not.
Probably not.
That's why we set realistic expectations of, okay, let's work around a conservative figure of, let's between 5 and 7% might make sense. And this is what you're going to have if you're saving, X amount of dollars a month. So
very similar to real estate. We're not expecting, those COVID increases every year, but over time, there's going to be, an average or consistent percentage return
definitely
that you're going to get into your real estate portfolio, right? Whether it's just your personal home or otherwise.
Definitely. And I would say in real estate as well as, investing in the market, you have to create those realistic expectations. Like, not every year, let's say real estate is going to be like 2021, right? And so when you're dealing with a seller, I would imagine on the real estate side, it's probably difficult at sometimes to set that expectation, is that, today's price wasn't, or yesterday's price isn't today's price.
Right.
And so I think setting those expectations, again, from a real estate perspective and then also a financial planning perspective, is one of the most important things that I would deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Have you ever run into a situation where someone approaches you and say, we've actually been investing for the past 3-5 years, but we ran into a bit of a challenge in how we were investing before? Do you ever run into that?
All the time.
All the time?
All the time.
Wow.
So generally speaking, people will reach out to me if they're frustrated, let's say, with a big bank and how they're investing at the bank, or they might not be happy with their returns. They might be subpar, and they might be just looking for a second opinion. And I would encourage everybody to get a second opinion, especially on their investments, just to see what else is out there. But yeah, a lot of people will get comfortable where they are. And on an investment standpoint, sometimes they won't even know in terms of what they're paying in fees, what they're, average return was just a year ago. They don't know where to get a statement. And so that's why it's always important to get that second opinion.
Awesome. And as far as fees go,
Yeah.
I would think that a lot of people don't know how that works.
Yep.
Do I pay you, and how do I pay you? Does it come off a percentage? And if I go, the value of my portfolio goes higher, do I pay a higher percentage? Like, how does that work? If you can shorten that up and before we wrap up the podcast
Yep,
and tell us how that works.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's, again, that's a topic that, not a lot of people want to talk about, but it's important because it's definitely in the back of every investor's mind, right? That wants to work with you is how do you get paid? Mm-hmm. And so in my case with my firm, we charge basically a percentage for assets under management. So let's just say.
Do you mean like a certain percentage?
Yeah, a certain percentage. Let's say 1%.
Okay.
Right? So 1%, and that's basically what you're paying on a yearly basis. So if the fund does, let's say your investment does 10%, after you pay the advisor, you're at 9%.
Not a bad return.
That would be a great year. Is that going to happen every year? Maybe not, but again, that's one way.
Yeah, how would that compare to what you would pay at a financial institution, we'll just call it?
Sure. So at a traditional financial institution, if let's say you're between, $10,000 to $300,000 in that range, because it varies, you're likely going to be paying anywhere from 2 to 2.5%.
Ouch.
Yeah, and that will really eat into your returns, especially over time. I know everybody's seen those Fidelity, Questrade, Q-Trade commercials, which are very well done to some extent. But again, those fees matter, and not a lot of Canadians know that they're paying them because it's not like you're tapping your debit card or credit card every year. It's just coming off the back end.
You don't really think about.
But it makes a big difference, definitely.
Absolutely. So people can save money with you, make money with you,
Yes.
and build their wealth.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks so much
100%.
for joining us today, Kevin.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to having you on again.
Thanks for having me. I
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
it. Thank
Cheers.
you.